Good evening and welcome to the work session of the Port Jefferson Village Board of Trustees. It is October 9th and the time is 5:06. Clerk Perillo, would you like to confirm that there is a quorum here?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor Shepro?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Giuliano is absent. Trustee Laux?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Hill?
Here.
Thank you. Trustee Ugrinsky?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to announce that Attorney Moran and Treasurer Gaffgar are with us as well.
Okay, wonderful. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You got the chair.
Thank you. Tonight, we have a special presentation from our Stormwater Management Program Coordinator, Brian M. McCaffrey. And we're looking forward to this. This is an annual event, and we're happy that you're here tonight, Brian. So let's have it.
It's new for most of you on the board. Stan said this a few times in his tenure.
Start again.
Yeah, so this will be a new training for some of those trustees who were recently elected, and some of those have done this version of it before. This permit is a brand new permit that DEC issued back in January. It's a 5-year permit. So basically describing what the permit entails for stormwater and all the permit requirements, and then what we've done in the current year in compliance with the permit. Sorry. Yep. Let me get out of here. Wrong button. Sorry. Apologies. I hit them. I do.
No, it doesn't want to open.
Okay.
Yes, I have it. All right, we can go through it in the paper form, and if you want to work through it with there at the same time. Right?
You want to change it.
We should do that.
Oh, wait, oh, no, I don't have a copy of it.
Should jump on it, Stephen, for that?
No, I only just got it 5 minutes ago.
Brian, I know you know this like the back of your hand.
Yep.
You can start
You wanna
talking
present?
through some of
Okay.
this and
Sounds good.
give the trustees a background
Very
and
good.
what the law is and that
Okay.
kind of thing.
So this permit was originally started back in 2003, and then every 5 years there's a new version of the permit, and every year, every version of the permit has different requirements that the DEC imparts on all the municipalities. So it's not just the villages, it's towns, it's the county, so it's still all the governments. So this 5-year version of the permits has been issued in January. So it's effective January 3rd, 2024, and expires on January 2, 2029. One of the major changes in this permit that was actually beneficial to us was that DEC rescinded one of the requirements for a total maximum daily load requirement for pathogens that are in the stormwater. So pathogens are basically disease-causing bacteria that are present in the water. They come from various sources, such as boaters, pet wastes, your wild waterfowl, deer, pretty much anything that excrement on the ground ends up in the stormwater, ends up in the harbor. So the DEC realized in this recent permit that it was very difficult to quantify which source came from the municipality, which came from, dog walkers, which are from boaters. So I said, we really can't impose this upon villages, so they rescinded that portion. So that was a big win for all of us with these, pathogen impaired water bodies. So with this permit also, because it's a 5-year permit, they front loaded a lot of the requirements in this first 6 months and first year. So you'll see a lot of what we had to accomplish this first year. There's six, major topics in this permits. One is the public education outreach portion of it. So basically, we're improving public education about stormwater, and how pollutants get into the stormwater and how it affects our water body and the water quality of our harbor. So we usually implement this through stormwater education materials that are on the websites or through mailers and emails out to the residents. Number 2 is public involvement and participation. So we encourage the public to get involved in the program, so they'll be able to review our stormwater management plan, our reports, and if we ever have opportunities for the public to get involved with, maybe do like a rain garden plantings, we can invite them in to do that as well. Number 3 is the illicit discharge detection
What
and
about,
elimination.
what about erosion commissions?
That as well, that can work.
Okay.
We can include that as well. Next one is illicit discharge detection and elimination. This is basically it's a program that detects, tracks, and eliminates unlawful discharges and connections into our storm system. So we implement this through public education. We do dry weather inspections of the outfalls in the harbor and into Mill Creek. And we also do training of the municipal employees for detection, as they're driving around doing their daily jobs. They may see instances where the public may have dumped something on the ground, or there may be a connection into the system. Number 4 is our construction site stormwater runoff control. So this is basically a program that we're going to control the stormwater runoff from construction sites, basically preventing the sand and the sediment from into the roadways and ultimately ending up in the sewer system and the waterways. So we do this through reviewing and approving the stormwater pollution prevention plans that are issued with the site permits, the site plan and site permits. And then we do also periodic inspections of their stormwater controls, such as their hay bales and silt fences.
Is there a lot size that is it only up to a certain amount of acreage or
So
square feet?
So it
That-
starts
that a
when you
SWIP is
have 1
required?
acre or more is where this kicks in.
Okay.
So that's where you disturb 1 or more acre. So if you disturb 0.9 of an acre, it doesn't count. So next one is post-construction stormwater management. So this is a program that's basically ensures proper maintenance of your catch basins, your dry wells that may have been installed as part of a project in order to control and contain the stormwater that's on site. So we implement this through conducting inspections, and there's a maintenance agreement typically with commercial properties and the village that the commercial property owners will need to maintain their stormwater controls for the life that they own the property. And then last one, number 6, is pollution prevention and good housekeeping. So basic program to minimize pollutants from entering the stormwater sewer system from municipal facilities and operations. We implement these procedures, assessments of the facilities, and street sweeping, cleaning the roadway, catch basins, and dry wells, and then also through training of the staff. All right, so that's the basic components of the program. And then the requirements that were implemented in this current version of the permit was during the first 4 to 5 days, we had to issue a notice of intent that we intended to comply with the previous permit. So this is discontinued coverage. Then the first 6 months, we had to prepare a staffing plan and organizational chart for storm management activities, basically identifying who in the village is responsible for which portions of the storm management program. We also had to rewrite the entire storm management plan in order to comply and basically describe how we're going to implement the new permits. There was a enforcement response plan, which basically takes the requirements in the village code for violations and how you'll, I guess, issue those violations for illicit discharges to the stormwater sewer system and for any silt and sediment discharges from construction sites. We basically had these things, these procedures, pretty much in everyone's head or in the village. Now it's written in a plan that we can follow. And then we've also established an inventory of active construction sites and post-construction stormwater management practices. Basically, it's a list of all the construction sites that have occurred in the village since 2003 that are either inactive or active, and then what they may have on those sites as far as stormwater management practices that will need to be maintained in the future.
And that's on our website right now?
It's not currently on the website. That's an internal document, so we could share it if we wanted to, but it's an internal document that we have. It's been shared with the building department has it, so we'll and that'll be maintained.
Does that directly correlate with our current regulations or how we do enforcement today? Like, would it be useful to share that around more broadly?
It's really just a list of all the construction sites that we have in the village. I don't know how much value would be to many of the residents, but we could make it available if we.
Yeah, no, I meant
we
to the
need to.
folks who literally are doing the construction, et cetera. Do they
Right.
do we enforce that? Do we actively communicate that information to them? Are they aware of what they're allowed and not allowed to do?
You're talking about the construction operators?
Yes.
Yes. So in actually, there's another plan coming up. Well, I'll talk about that a little bit more. So I'll get to that point.
Andy Freeling's here too, so if Andy, if you, at any point you feel like you want to come up and sit with us and participate in the conversation, you'd be welcome to.
So actually, this ties right into your question, Zena. So also in the first year, we prepared a procedure manual for implementation of the construction oversight program and the post-construction inspection maintenance program. So basically, this outlines how, starting from the initial submittal of a project by an operator, how we go through the whole process of construction and then leading up to the inspections at the end. So basically describes how we go through and do the site plan submittal, the stormwater pollution prevention plan, reviews, what they're required as far as their training and oversights for their personnel, what inspections are needed for during the construction of that site, what our expectations are for them in order to meet these our requirements. So all that information is now in one document that, as we get new staff on site, within the village, that can be handed off and basically goes through all the processes to kind of help them get up to speed faster.
So the contractors understand what their compliance requirements are, and the
Yep.
staff understands how to enforce it.
That's correct.
Going forward.
Yep.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Brian, if you want to move that microphone a little closer,
Yep.
just in case they can't hear
Certainly.
you at home.
And then annually, this is generally in the permit, we have to provide the stormwater management program plan to the public for review and comment, and we make that available to the public on the website. We provide the training for the staff relative to identifying illicit discharges. We completed that. We're completing today the training for the village elected officials relative to the whole stormwater management program as a whole. There are the dry weather inspections, the outfall pipes out to Mill Creek and to the harbor. I completed those. And then over the year, the highway department will do the street sweeping of the roads and the village-owned parking lots. They also clean out the problematic roadway catch basins and dry wells. At the end of the year, I'll be doing a report on the water quality of the Port Jefferson Harbor, based upon data that the county and the state collects for water quality relative to pathogens in the harbor. And then there are the semi-annual and the annual reports that go to the DEC.
So, where do these reports live? Where are they now?
So they will live on the website.
Mm-hmm.
There's a section in our stormwater management webpage that stores the reports that so they'll be available for the public to view.
So, with the dry weather inspections of stormwater outfall pipes, it's a limited in scope, right? It's not, is it every outfall pipe that,
So we have 35 pipes that go to Port Jefferson Harbor, to Mill Creek, and actually there's 3 that go to Mount Sinai Harbor. So so every year it's not a big lift to do that. So we just do the drive arounds and do the inspection every year.
and what do you look for?
So basically, you're looking for any evidence of discharge, maybe some staining, if there's any actual water coming out, it may be indicative of either a groundwater discharge, maybe leaking into the pipe, or it's a connection into the pipe from somebody else. So maybe looking for evidence of like suds from a washing machine, or maybe someone had dumping gray water into a storm drain from like a kitchen
Or paint?
or paint. So we've had both of those instances come up during inspections. So that's basically what we're looking for.
And so you inspect, what if, for example, we did see paint coming into the Mill Creek
Mhm.
or something that looked greasy and white, like
Right.
paint-like material, or who do we call?
So you would first reach out to, well, I guess depending on what you presume it to be. If it's a hazardous material, you contact the fire department, and then you could also contact DEC to come and I guess identify what it is. And
Non-jurisdictional.
so there is a plan that will need to be done in year 2 that will describe that whole process.
Okay,
So we will be getting that
Okay.
in this next year, yeah.
all right.
But then that will define who to call on, for every step, and depending on what it is, and the timelines for that as well.
Okay, all right, great. Yep. In the meantime,
In the meantime,
DPW?
DPW, the fire department, and then let me know, and then we'll try and track it down and see where it came from.
Okay.
All right, so within years 2 through 5, so this is the next 4 years coming up. So basically, what these bullets here define is that we'll have some work, I guess, regarding a lot of it's going to be updating the stormwater sewer infrastructure map. So the DEC, based upon what they're requiring as far as information, such as like pipe size, pipe diameter, connections, the slope, the direction it's going to, all that information will need to be put on a map. And that's gonna be very difficult if you have like a paper map, like an AutoCAD type file. So it seems like they're trying to move towards like a GIS style format, so Geographic Informational System. That way you'll be able to click on a certain pipe or a dry well, and all the information will pop up in the system. It also had all the different overlays because they wanted to see topographical contours. They want to see the zoning maps. They want to see all this information. So to have this in paper copies is going to be very, very difficult and complex and difficult to manage. GIS is a great system. A lot of the information gets downloaded from the Suffolk County GIS system, so it's all built in, and it just needs to be developed. So that's something we're going to need to be moving towards that.
These unfunded mandates?
Unfunded mandates, unfortunately, but it is phased over the next 4 years, so it's not do it all at once, but we will have to do portions of it over the next 4 years in order to complete this by 2029. So that's the big one. And then we'll also have, as I mentioned, the illicit discharge track down and elimination program. So this will be where we discuss if there is a illicit discharge identified, who does it report to, and go up the chain from there. We'll also do a municipal facility maintenance program. So it's basically more procedures. We have some procedures already in place. We just need to expand this program based on other procedures that the DEC is looking for. And then we'll do facility assessments as well. So usually these are done every 3 years. So it's basically, Village Hall, DPW, Country Club. So those are basically what we'll be looking at.
Bless you. So these are stormwater collection assessments?
These are more assessments of facility operations that may have pollutants such as fertilizers or grease and oils that has potential to go into the storm drain system. So we're just going to take a look and make sure that procedures are in place, controls are in place to prevent those discharges from happening. And then the next slide is regarding annual reporting. So every year there are every reporting year there's 2 semi-annual reports basically describing your 6-month progress as for implementation of the permits. And then every April there is an annual report that basically describes what you did over the previous year, kind of summarizes for the previous reporting period. And that is the end of the slides. So, are there any further questions?
Yeah, I think I have one. What's the current staffing for this, and what do you anticipate the staffing to be required for the next budget cycle?
That's a great question.
We can start with the beginning, right? So what's the current staffing level?
Well, the current staffing level is basically, Andy's group over in building department, Steve Gallagher's group up in highway, myself, and code enforcement officers.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people involved in the program. I'm not anticipating any new hires to do it. Maybe we'll have some more inspectors.
Just really quick,
Yeah.
we have a planner, myself, we have a building inspector, and we'll be taking on another building inspector. I can't speak for DPW, but I will. They have several fire marshals. They have a code enforcement officer. So that would be part of the staff as well.
Okay, and Brian was describing, some visual monitoring. Do we have any systematized monitoring that we are capable of doing in the village beyond driving around and?
I mean, technology assisted?
Yeah, just chemical testing. Do we have guys who are trained to be able to do that randomly?
We don't have that
Can we go
currently,
through
but
the
we usually would contract that out to someone who can. In the
Water
past,
authority. Good. Right, does the water authority get involved in
the
some
water
of that?
authority could. In the past, we've also used
Department of Health.
Cornell Cooperative Extension. They've done sampling for us as well. Especially in Mill Creek, we're trying to figure out DNA testing of the pathogens and trying to figure out what the sources were.
Yeah.
So for Mill Creek, it was primarily the geese and dogs, and it was not human. I guess from sanitary system overflows. It's good to know.
Do we know well, maybe this is an Andy question. So what percentage of our population is sort of, or our area, I guess is probably a better one, residences, is cesspool versus sewer hookup? Do we know?
Anecdotally, I could tell you that the majority of the village is not on a public sanitary system, not on sewers.
Okay.
The C1 and the C2 district is, and going down North 112, I believe, sewered as well. But the extent of our sewering in the village really is just one spine and a couple of fingers that come off it, and that's it. Most of the residential areas are on individual sanitary systems.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see as this progresses, whether there's a correlation between the two and whether there are things that we should start planning for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's nice with the GIS system is you can actually add that map, that overlay map, to see the sewer districts on top of our stormwater district, stormwater, I guess, watershed, and you kind of
Right.
see that correlation. So that's
Yeah.
something we could certainly add.
Thank you, Brian. This was great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And just to, we also voted at our last meeting to work with an on-call engineering firm so that we can, if needed, work with them on some of this as well. But there are, for the staff that we have, this is a lot of extra and unfunded mandatory activity.
Yes.
But good, all good.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
For the right reasons.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. The ultimate goal is, to improve the water quality of our waterways so we can all enjoy it.
We have a lot of storm drains that need to be cleaned out.
Yes. Unfortunately, the storm sewer system was designed back in the 30s before, the rainfall started to increase in intensity. So,
And we also want to know what's coming out of those storm drains when they're drained, right?
Right.
When they're cleaned out.
We do?
No, yeah, we do. We want to plan for the future always. So, yeah.
We
Thank
might
you.
be able to use it.
good.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Kyle.
just so if actually this happened last week, if someone notices like a catch basin or a dry well that they perceive to be full of sediment, like what would be the appropriate way to, I don't know, see if they're right, wrong, or if
Report
something
it
needs
to
be done with
DPW.
it?
Mhm.
Okay.
They
And
have
can
the,
residents do that? Should they?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually DEC actually encourages that the public be involved, and with the website, call the number. If there's an issue with stormwater, call this. For catch basins, call DPW. If it's illicit discharge, contact the code enforcement. So,
And
well,
even if it's a private parking lot or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, we actually had an event like that down on Doyle Court, right around the corner from me. And the resident there reached out to the village, and DPW was there making sure that that was as clean as it could be, given it's on
quite a
the
few phone
downslope.
calls after
Yeah.
August
Like that, yeah.
19th
Right,
and
right.
20. Yeah,
Yeah.
18, 19.
It was good to see the DPW jump into action and, when residents let us know. So,
And then, so if it's at a private or non-municipal, who is it? It would be their responsibility to get that sediment out. Is the
correct. So if it's a privately owned dry well, they would have to then clean it out. It would not be on the village unless there's an agreement with the village to do the maintenance on it.
So if it's a parking lot that has yes, they are responsible for their own private property. From the audience. Can you repeat the question that was asked, Brian? So,
Yes, I guess the question was, are we seeing any issues with single-use plastic sitting up in the storm water sewer system? I'm not aware of any issues, but I'm sure that if there are occurrences of clogging, because those plastics combine with other leaves and other debris and create a clog. So I'm sure it's happening, but I can't give you any specifics on where exactly.
Public Works will have the answer to that question.
But I have noticed all the softballs in the creek. Okay, so.
Yes, true. And actually plastic in
Right.
Mill Creek as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Andy?
The only thing I can add to that is at the next meeting, I'll be doing a presentation on our zoning map, which is a digitized zoning map. And our work with Suffolk County doing that has led us to think of other projects. You mentioned one that could be a project today. The county has their GIS system that you know, where you can bring over a land use map and you can put it on top of an aerial, you can put it on top of the tax map base, you can make it opaque so you could, so it's solid, or you can make it transparent so you can see through it and see the details. We would like to do that with our zoning map, and we can add a layer as well to our stormwater facilities. And what's nice about the GIS system that we use through the county is that they've got a topo layer and they have all the layers that you were talking about. So it would be one tool where our zoning in relation to our facilities, in relation to everything else, would be a very interactive tool that the public could use.
Yes,
So we are
let's do it.
weeks away from doing that.
Okay, great. That could be helpful to the U.S. Geological Survey project as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Wait, question.
Yes.
We have a flat map that shows all of our outflow system.
That's correct.
How do we put in the elevation part of it?
Well, you could overlay topo so you could see the information. To make it three-dimensional, that would require, I guess, another software where we could actually make it a three-dimensional rolling type of image. But just for quick and dirty analysis, you could see the location of the outfall and the topo line that goes through it. You'll see the elevation of the outfall. If there was something other that you wanted to do, then that we would just create software.
Is there any minimum drop that's required on these outflow pipes?
So the minimum is generally a quarter inch to a foot. That's the minimum. Obviously, greater slope is better, for flow. You get more flow out of it. We would also need to, in this next phase of determining, invert elevations on this piping, you would need to physically get someone to put a survey marker, stick in the pipe itself and survey that point. And then all that information would need to get added. So our stormwater, I guess our piping system is really everything pretty much down Main Street, starting up from, I guess it's sheep pasture, all the way down to the harbor. So it's one main long run, and then a couple of branches off as it goes, that big trunk that goes to Mill Creek, and then down in the village, the downtown area with all those other interconnecting pipes. So we'd have to go in there and get all those invert and from the catch basins.
Do we know that at the present time, all of these pipes are intact and operable?
Well, that's, we have not done, I guess, camera studies on them to confirm that they're actually usable. But we do suspect that there are some cracks in some of the older pipes, because we are getting groundwater discharges into those pipes, especially over in the fifth season parking lot. The furthest drywall in the back, you just hear water pouring into it, and it's clean water, so it's definitely from it's most likely from a groundwater source than someone discharging into it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, we are going to go into monthly reports, and I would like to start tonight with Trustee Ugrinsky, as you are discussing some things, and I'd like to invite Renee Lemmerman, who is the manager for the Village Center. Come on up and potentially participate in this conversation.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. So, just to recap the why, we know that the rec center has been operating at a deficit for a number of years. We also know that the pricing on the room rentals in the rec center have not changed in well over a decade. Treasurer Gafka, can you just give us the final sort of what the annual deficit was for, or is for this year? But could you also take out the impact of last year's deficit so it's not aggregated?
Or
So-
both. Be interested in both.
Okay, I'll give us both, yeah, but it's relevant to the model, that's why I asked that way.
Mhm.
Just to be clear, the deficit for the past fiscal year.
The past fiscal year would be year ending 23 May,
May of 24.
May of
From
24.
June to
Yes.
May of 24. Okay, so
Thank you.
the analysis, when you take into account all of the employment impact, the liabilities, health insurance, the maintenance expenses, the deficit, when you include all of the ice rink revenue, was around $250,000.
Okay, thank you.
That's not the, what would it be if you brought the year before's deficit into that number?
I don't have the year before's number in front of me.
So that is
do we have a
just-
year-
I don't have it
That's
memorized.
just a zero balance, zero-based budget.
For the
deficit
last year.
For June 23 to May 24.
Yes, when you account for all of the expenses that are involved with the running the village center, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So the Budget and Finance Committee was tasked with doing an analysis on the room rental rates and included data like the hours used, the days used, whether they were meetings or events, and based on that, we, as collectively, built a model that allowed us to do a rate volume analysis that produced something where we could see what the room rental rates ought to be based on their individual usage, based on square footage, based on the type of area it is. For example, the full downstairs of the village center versus just one of the skipjack room, or where it's very contained. And so essentially we produced a model that allowed us to figure out how to at least close the gap, the funding gap. At that point, we took that model and sat with Renee, went through it. We made a number of corrections based on observations by the people who are actually doing the room rentals, understand the space, understand the staffing needs of the various types of events that we do. And we do have one more outlying task that we have to go through, but I'll save that sort of for the end. So we're confident that we have a recommendation for the village on what the rates ought to be. And this is based on the data that we had, okay? So understand much of this was on paper that we had to go through to build an entire year's worth of data to build this model. Next year, we will have very specific data from which to further fine tune it, but it's an approach that allows us to at least keep the costs flat to budget for the village center. And that included now a number of things. So what other goals did we have for the pricing? We wanted to solve for how do we provide preferential pricing for residents, for the organizations that are affiliated with the village that allow us to still stay flat. Okay, we're not looking to make money, right? We're just looking to cover costs and provide these resources to the residents and to other people who would like to use village property for a fee. So where we are now is Renee has been provided that. I believe you guys should all have this sort of 3-pager that I sent out. And
Is it in this packet?
it may or may not be, but I sent it out
I
to you
did
guys
see
in
you
the
sent it,
email.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't have it.
I'm not going to go through all of the assumptions we made on the model. Where we are today is we are at a point where we can produce a new hourly rate based on the same hourly minimums. The resulting pricing is now simpler, right? It used to be, what day of the week are you doing? Is it an event? Is it a meeting? And then, are you a resident? Are you a non-resident? Are you a non-resident, nonprofit? It was fairly complicated just to navigate the pricing. So we've greatly simplified the pricing. There is a flat rate per hour for each of the rooms, and it varies by weekend and weekday only. And then all residents and all resident non-for-profits get a straight 25% discount on the rate. With that, I believe we have accomplished a couple of things. One is to keep costs flat. How did we do that? We ensured that there was enough of an overage with that pricing to cover the additional staffing that the rec department needs to set up for these for these rentals and special events, and the breakdown. So labor costs are covered. We can have somebody who's at least available for coverage. And then it is also priced so that it incorporates the 25% resident discount based on utilization rates from a trailing 12 months. So obviously we have to revisit all of this just to fine tune it a year from now, but we'll use that to help inform the budget this year. So with that, I will, and what is still outstanding? What is still outstanding is going through the list, and we're planning on doing this next Thursday in the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Renee will be there. We're going to go through who are the shortlisted sort of nonprofits that are affiliated with the village, that should be on that list, that do things like rent the entire building, okay? Or they rent the building and the park for 3 days. And we have to figure out, is there something else that we should do relative to parking? Okay, we had an event on Sunday. Can we use the ice rink for some overflow parking? Should we cordon off some of the parking lot? Should there be a charge for that? Is there going to be a cost to it? So that is the last remaining detail. But at this point, for the day-to-day rentals, for meetings or for personal parties, I think we have sufficient information now to provide a brochure, or actually Renee and I were talking about this earlier. I was asking, what it would take to sort of roll this out. So with that, I think I'll pass it to Renee just to talk about how that pricing would be rolled out. And then we can get some questions.
So once the board approves the pricing, then it will be reflected on the website. There was a brochure that Fran Moshe made, the flyers and everything, so it will reflect the new pricing.
And how much of an effort is that is there like more signage that we have to do? Is it a big
No,
effort?
it's very
or-
simple
Okay.
change.
Okay, so.
It's contractual too. So as people sit with the staff and figure out the room that they want to use and
Mhm.
the hours that they need it for and the services that they'll be asking for, then the rates are discussed at that point
Mhm.
and inserted into the contract. Did anything change with regard to their thoughts about a deposit, a security deposit, and or insurance?
So currently, we left the deposit as is at $500. The only insurance that we're requesting is for alcohol certificate insurance. I don't know if we need any other types of insurance. Maybe that's an attorney question.
I think that was discussed and implemented how many
Well,
years ago,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
a while ago.
So in these categories, does this include, so when the PTSA comes to ask for a room rental, does this include the rates that they would be asked to pay? And for the Victorian luncheon and the things related to students in the district, do they get the resident rate? What, is there any difference there?
So my understanding is that we'll discuss that next at next Thursday's meeting.
Yeah. I mean, that we're going to do a discussion on everything from, you know, the regatta, dragon boat, antique garden, Dickens, any of the functions that use either, you know, the entire building, right? And why are we doing that? Because if we apply the hourly rate to that, it prices them completely out, right? So we have to figure out some sort of a formula that we can use that the staff can apply on a regular basis that gives this group, this smaller list of organizations, you know, a way to utilize the recreational center for at a price point that doesn't kill them.
And resident nonprofits do we have a very specific list of which organizations are included in that?
Again, that's what we're,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you look at the pricing model as it was developed, really just contemplated these sort of individual room rentals and took into account, you know, how to keep that budget flat. It also took out the impact, like the original model took out the impact of who did pay previously, who didn't pay previously, right? Because that's what we're still trying to model to complete this exercise.
With regard to parking, one of the options we've been talking about and trying to figure out is if prepaid parking is an option. So, you know, we have these license plate readers and anybody can I can pay for parking from my phone here and park in, if I'm not a resident, I can park in any spot in the whole entire village without penalty. It's enforced by my license plate.
Yep.
So there are ways, and we have had pilot opportunities to test that out, and it seemed to work very well. And the attendees of the party that received the benefit of advanced parking through the party coordinator were so happy. It was like a non-issue. It was a wash. It wasn't even recognized as an issue. So that's a thing, and we can
I made a note,
publicize that
yeah.
in the material that we offer.
I think there's some coordination there that could be helpful because I think that would be attractive to some of the larger
Absolutely,
events.
very attractive.
Yeah.
Zena, are these prices that are listed as resident or non-resident?
These are non-resident.
Non-resident.
Yeah, so
we
you
work-
can assume
we work off of
that the
those.
resident pricing is 75% of that.
So Zena, I had sent you a document like a few
Yes.
hours ago. I don't know if you wanted me to,
I
as
did.
an example.
I did. I was hoping to talk to you before the meeting, but please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. So this is just an example of each room, sale-off room, and I'll show you the current rate and proposed rates. It's a packet, so keep it all together. Sorry.
We messed it up already.
You could
That's
pass
you.
this all down.
Treasurer, did you get one?
So if you notice, the first page is the sale-off room. It has a resident rate, non-resident rate, and then the current rate, and then our proposed rate. The next page has the Wayfair room, current rate, proposed rate for resident, non-resident. And again, this is just all sample. Skipjack room, resident rates, non-resident rates, current rate, proposed rate, and finally the Harbor Cove room for resident, non-resident, current and proposed rates. So that you can really see where we were, where we're going, and if you have any questions.
What is the deal with no kegs or hard liquor?
It's always been, yeah, hard lick, they've just never allowed it. I can't give you a
Is there
reason.
some sort of village?
Dave, is there a difference? Is there an insurance rate difference between
You have to have a
having?
liquor
I'm not
license
sure,
or
'cause they
something?
differentiate liquor licenses based on the sale of hard liquor or beer and wine license and other things. So I'm sure that there's differences in the license obtained for the purpose. Insurance wise, you would think that that also would increase based on the liability associated with the harder liquor.
Or if you're bringing in a party, you might have to get your own alcohol permit, right? Through the Suffolk County Department of Health Services or something like that?
That I
If
don't
that
know.
was allowed, if it was allowed.
So you'll notice not all of the rates have moved in the same by the same percentage. So that just that's an indicator that there were other variables taken into account, such as the popularity or the square footage. And yeah, I think after over a decade of not moving the price, I think this sort of right sizes the pricing. At least that was the goal of the group.
So is there any opportunity to, so the full day, you're gonna look at the full day rates next, right? Okay.
Full day, and I mean, for the individual rooms, it's not an issue. It's really when we're talking about the entire first floor. And many of the larger events will also use one or more of the other rooms. So if you aggregate the hourly rate, it becomes quite expensive, right? So if you want to rent out the entire village center and use the Harborfront Park, we have to determine what that really looks like. And similar to this exercise, the group, as well as Renee, went out and got comparatives to try and at least establish the fact that we were staying within market rates and similar to some of the other venues in similar villages.
Okay. So any questions from the trustees? Stan, did you have questions?
I did have a lot of questions that she answered.
Okay, nothing that would help us? But please put your mic on.
Some of the questions I asked was the original pricing, was it by the hour? Where do you show the differences between the resident and non-resident? That was answered. The not-for-profit, we've got to identify those. That was just discussed. And again, the park was not included, and that's going to be. Custodial fees. I wonder about that.
Yeah, we included that. That was
That's
built into the new
built
rates.
into the price.
Mhm.
And then the recommendations for fees for the organizations that use the entire properties.
Pending.
Oh, the free. In the past, there was like a free room for some organizations once a year, I believe.
So the not-for-profits were allowed one free rental Monday through Thursday, So they could do a fundraiser or thank you parties for their not-for-profits. So it's something else, that we will discuss.
And the village committee, council, whatever, meetings that are taking place at the village center.
So I think the
So
way
parks
we viewed it was if, there are certain events that we do, right? So the resident thank you night, right? Residents night. I mean, who are we going to charge? Or something like the elections that we hold, right? Those are events. They shut down the entire place, and it's built in as well.
Right.
So from a
Trustee Locks, I
time
think you were
perspective.
about the conservancy meetings or bid
Mhm.
meetings.
Yes,
Right.
yes. I was also a little concerned that we're writing contracts for 25 already,
Correct.
and
We have about 7 already.
they reflect the present rate and not the new rate.
Correct.
So we've got to get this in place like ASAP.
Yeah, we might also just want to look at those 7 contracts and just determine whether it's really a material difference. If it's a room where the rate increase was not much, it doesn't really hurt us, But I would need to
Was the
have
rate
the
that was in
Budget and
place at the
Finance Committee
time.
look at
So,
those.
we also discussed recently, some organizations charge an administrative fee or concierge fee if they require more service than just set up and break down. So if somebody needs to be on hand to run an errand or find something breaks, or there's staffing that's needed to be present during an event of some kind. So that was, if it's 17%, 15%, but not for all, but assessed at the time of the discussion and negotiation of the contract.
In the past, I would bring in custodians and give it, and it would be 3 hours overtime. Excuse me, but what's happening with a lot of these events, they're getting bigger and a little bit more demanding on their needs. So the second staff person, really kind of becomes important, and it's not every weekend, it's just specific to that event.
Mhm.
So I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
I think that's important because I've been in there many times when the night manager would have to be leaving the front desk and going upstairs and taking care of things that takes him away from what he really is there for.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that's important. I think we witnessed that just this past Sunday, right? When we had the third floor, something was clearing out on the third floor while the Brookhaven Women's Caucus was meeting downstairs and doing an awards presentation, right? So our front desk manager literally had to sort of be the buffer to escort them out so they weren't disrupting the event. So yeah, I totally support evaluating how we built that in.
Absolutely.
I did get an offhanded compliment about the event on Sunday. I don't think it was the first floor. I think it was the third floor. They
floor.
complimented the staff and said they did a really nice job.
Great. We try to.
Okay, that's, I know this looks like it's simple and easy, but I know how much work went into this, and just sussing out all the details was not a 2-day job. It did take quite a few meetings to kind of help the Budget and Finance Committee understand and look at the mission and the vision of the Village Center, look at the historic references to the policies that were never enacted but written.
Mhm.
And, we're using those to also inform us, the historic, recent history references to help inform us with policy and whatnot. So, and I love the work that Fran has done on the branding and the promotional materials. She's done an amazing job, beautiful work. And, Renee and I met 2 weeks ago with two representatives that run conferences and events at Stony Brook University, who are, this is their life, right? They just visit with clients, customers, and they're busy. Every single room on the campus is basically 75% of the space that is available for use internally and externally is run through their office. And they really gave us quite a few tips and opportunities to learn from them and work with them. So once this is up and running, I think we have a real opportunity to implement a soft launch marketing initiative and just to let people know what's here. It is the best view on, I think, of a facility of this type. I'll venture to guess Long Island. So, and Renee, I want to compliment you on your dedication, and you're always thinking about what can be done differently and better. And we really appreciate that. It's not an easy job. You're an event manager, you're a building manager, and you run recreation programs, and they all converge in the Village Center. I also wanted to say that there was a program that went out recently that looked amazing. It was the night out in Port Jefferson. Enjoy a night out in Port Jefferson. Your kids are coloring and doing arts and crafts in the Village Center, right? That looks like, did you think that? Was it you, Granier?
Yeah, no,
That's very smart
times.
and very, very nice for the families in Port Jeff. And is there a limit to how many kids can be in that?
25,
25? First come, first serve?
absolutely.
Yeah. So,
As long as the parents come back to pick up.
very smart. Let's see how popular that is. Are we promoting that on Instagram and Facebook?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We have a question from the audience.
Yeah, there's certain months that are more popular. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the question was
Is there a wait list for?
utilization.
So we did trend it out, and we went through the entire model, the entire trailing 12 months of utilization, and we have a pretty good roadmap of where those peaks and valleys are. What was interesting, just from the data, was the popularity of one room versus another, and why. But it was, the group couldn't have built this model if it weren't for the input of both Renee and Alex as we were going through it. But I mean, just the experience that they have over years and years to help fine tune that. So yes, in answer to your question, yes, we have all the utilization data now too. And we'll continue to sort of capture that in a much more granulated way. And the last thing from me is I just want to say thank you to the Budget and Finance Committee. We've got an incredible slate, really. I could not be prouder of the talent that has been aggregated, and I think I'm starting to get excited for going into this year's budget cycle. I think we're going to be able to really right-size this thing and do what needs to be done. So just wanted to give them a shout out too.
Yeah, thank you for doing, this is obvious, or it may not be obvious. It is like hard work where you have to really like sort through a lot of material and come up with these numbers. And it's, a $12.50 increase may seem, like you said, Mayor, on paper. Well, yeah, of course, but knowing that there's a thought behind
And
that
data-
decision is like
Data
really nice.
analysis, yeah.
I was just really curious, what is the vacancy rate of the rooms generally? And then did we also factor in, because I know the goal in this was to close that that revenue or spending deficit gap, but we also compete with other spaces. How are we comparing to like spaces
Okay,
in
so
like the immediate area
so
with the
um,
proposed I
so
guess
let's
first,
do the
if that's available.
comparatives first. So Renee did some research on what comparatives were. I went out and got some data as well, that was used as an input. We, it was pretty clear that we were underpriced for many, many years. Let's see, and the vacancy rate is really just the inverse of the utilization rate.
Yeah.
So, I think we can probably, I can get that to you. Yeah, because when we meet on Thursday, we'll just, that won't take long to do.
Just anecdotally, are we busy most weekends? The sail loft room is rented, 50 weeks out of the year or 42 weeks out of the year.
When you look at the village center, the most popular room is the sail-off room. The smaller room in the back on the third floor is L-shaped. It's a little stranger. Skipjack room on the first floor, is small, it has no view. So the sail-off room generally is booked almost every weekend.
Whoa. Sail loft room has a view. Skipjack room, has a view. You can totally see Danford's Marina from the skipjack room.
Yeah, if you're standing in a certain corner of that room,
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
see,
And the window's
You
open.
stand in the other corner, you see a brick wall, but you can certainly,
I
it
know
is
where I'm
beautiful.
standing.
And then you have the Wayfair room, which is a great room, but it's open to the public. So, the second floor has a hole in it. And, so really the sail off room is that prime room, and that room is rented.
And do we rent it 2 times a day or one?
So we generally rent it one time a day.
Mhm.
I've tried with 2. It's a little hard because our staff, our custodial staff, is there at 6 and leaves at 2:30. It's really hard to swing, and it's something that I always look at because I think it can be done.
Mhm.
But to flip it in an hour and a half, I think I can do it, but I don't. It's hard to get that done.
Mhm. Gotcha. Any other questions? All right. Thanks for being here, Renee.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Zena.
No, thanks to the Budget and Finance Committee.
All right. Do you have anything else you'd like to report on tonight since we started with you?
I do have, next week, we have another meeting of the Power Plant Working Group on Tuesday. Budget and Finance Committee meets Thursday, and I'm sure I'll have something additional to report
Okay.
at our next, at the public meeting.
All right. Trustee Laux.
Renee ran out on me. Some announcements about the Recreation Center. We met last week with the athletic director from the local schools. They have a recommendation to present to the board
Push that back a little. Thank you.
for the creation of a box lacrosse program. That proposal involved the use of the area that is now used for skating during the winter months. The council did not take a position on this as we didn't have a forum at our meeting. This issue will eventually come before the board for discussion. The concern was this is an active program athletically, but so is the ice skating. So It sounded like a positive program. It would be for both boys and girls, age 6 through 10, I believe it was. The Recreation Department is also in cooperation with the Waterview. We're holding our annual Halloween party Thursday, October 31st, from 6 to 8 o'clock at the Waterview. This party is for children accompanied by adults. We'll have plenty of food, some fun, and also a live DJ. So get into your costume and come on up to the Waterview, which is up at the Country Club on the 31st at 6 o'clock. We have received approval from the school district for the use of the elementary school all-purpose room for our pickleball programs, finally. And we also have permission to use the Spring Street School to run our youth and adult programs. These programs and schedules will or already have been posted on the website. The farmer's market, a couple of questions came up about the farmer's market. They're scheduled to remain outdoors through the month of November. The Recreation Department is presently looking into the possible change of software for the change of our programs. We presently use RecPro, and I know they've had some discussions with a company called DaySmart and Civic Recreation. We just finished the room center rental rate. The announcement was going to be they're in progress. I guess they still are. They're going to appear before us very shortly. A couple of announcements relating to our schools. We have been working with the schools regarding safety, especially during arrivals and dismissals at both the elementary and secondary schools. We have concerns about extreme congestion in the streets adjacent to the schools. In addition to student safety, we have concerns about the ability of emergency vehicles access going up the street, especially during dismissal in the afternoon. I'm not sure an EMT or a fire truck at some point could go up through there without having a little bit of a problem. I hope there's a lot of parents listening to this tonight. We're looking for parental cooperation. I know a lot of the students are being dropped off. Until we can come up with a solution, I'm emphasizing no double parking, no U-turns, watch your speed, be alert to pedestrians crossing the streets. I know that if we all cooperate, we can help solve this situation before we have some kind of serious accident.
I can add something to that, Stan.
Go,
You
go.
might know already, but code enforcement is deploying to the dismissals not simultaneously, but one after the other at the high school and also at the elementary school. And we're getting positive reports back
Right.
that it is helping.
I have gotten feedback on that, and it has been a tremendous help.
Okay.
It makes a big difference. Finally, a reminder to the school working group. We have meetings scheduled for tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. And then again on October 21st, the school working group will be meeting with 3 school board members. We don't have an agenda that I want to announce yet, but we will be discussing many issues relating to our enrollment, our future, where we're going. And once we're ready, I'll definitely be reporting it back. But it's a step forward. I'm very optimistic. The board was very positive in their response to join us and face questions from a select group. We are not inviting other people to the meeting. School group right now is about 9 people. So I think we have a pretty good across the board representation. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. One other aspect of safety on the roadways, we got a note from a resident in the Poet Street section who was concerned because they were unaware that there was going to be a lot of cars parked on Brook Road and parked in the Poet Streets and on their sort of, I don't know if it was on their property, but it was in front of their homes and around their homes and it's very congested. So,
Is this because of the construction?
no, this was on homecoming weekend. And on homecoming weekend, there was it was the carnival that we weren't aware of, that I guess the PTSA hosted a carnival down on the baseball field. And we didn't have an opportunity to plan for it, but that did lead to a conversation where the district sent us the dates of their upcoming events on the high school field, up on the football field, that we are preparing a flyer that can be hand-delivered to the homes in that neighborhood, giving them a heads up and letting them know, and if they want to address parking area around their lawns and their driveways, they are able to prepare for that. So it's in draft form. I'll shoot you
Right,
a
okay.
copy of it when it's complete, but the next game is Friday. And it's Mount Sinai, it's senior day, so it should be a pretty well-attended event.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions for Trustee Laux? Okay. Kyle?
Thank you, Mayor. So report for code enforcement. There were a couple events since our last meeting. We had the homecoming parade. That was September 27th. There were reported no issues or incidents. The homecoming game, that was on the 28th. No issues or incidents. And then the fun run that same day, no issues or incidents. And then upcoming is the Harvest Fest. That's village-wide, and that's October 19th and the 20th. Incident report recap. Total was 52. This is all for the month of September. They aided assisted agency disturbance, which is disorderly conduct, and then traffic conditions. And then summons recaps. Total was 485. Most of them were overtime parking at the meters. That was 222, followed by uninspected vehicles. So for vehicle inspection was 130, and then overtime parking on the Main Street Arden. Those free spaces was 41, and then parking without a permit 45, and they issued 10 warnings. Moving along, the speed sign that is on going westbound on North Country Road right by Loretta Gate. So that was installed earlier in the summer. For the September report, total of 91,000 or more than 91,000 vehicles passed by. The average speed was 35 miles per hour, which is over the speed limit. And more often, it's certainly a busy road there and a passway through, but more often than not, it's mostly going to be Port Jeff residents if it's in Port Jeff Village, where those are. So folks, please slow down. And then at the recommendation of the Public Safety Advisory Council, DPW installed another speed sign at Jefferson Landing Circle going east toward, eastbound on Old Post Road right by Jefferson Landing Circle. And that was installed on September 27th. So limited amount of data there, but total number of vehicles that passed by was 5,500, and the average speed was 28. So it's just below the speed limit, which is good news. And then the Public Safety Advisory Committee met on Monday this week. We had a briefing from code enforcement, which is very helpful for all the members on the council to understand kind of the, really just a 101 on code enforcement and how to access them, their hours of operation, the staffing levels, the budget. It was all very helpful for folks to understand, what is going on now so that we're not making recommendations in the dark. And then similar to the recommendation with the speed sign, they asked that we reach out to New York State Department of Transportation to look at Main Street and Liberty Avenue to do a traffic study there. And the complaint was that the light does not kind of accommodate what traffic looks like compared to the day versus the evening. And in the evening, the light stays red for a very long time, or it's just red more often than it needs to be. And trucks and motorcycles and every vehicle has to stop and wait, which creates noise pollution and exhaust pollution. And then that rev up to continue on is noisy as well. So I don't know if that's something we can.
Yes, for
Okay.
sure. I recall in my first weeks of office, I received some assistance from the planning board chair, who was a traffic engineer by trade, because we talked about the lack of timing on the lights up at Sheep Pasture and Main Street, North Country Road, Sheep Pasture, Main Street, and the one on Chubb up by, so then there's a light at Chubb. And it just seemed like the timing was off at Belterre Road in North Country and Sheep Pasture, and Chubb. Cherub? So we wrote a letter, and I have the contact, all the information that you would need to write that letter.
Okay.
And I think Sylvia could provide you with, I think we're going to look at letterhead that trustees can use in their own capacity.
Okay, great.
All right?
Thank you. Oh, and the next meeting of the Public Safety Advisory Committee is November 4th. That's the first Monday of that month. It's always going to be the first Monday, but November 4th is the first Monday of
Okay.
November.
Okay. Any questions for Trustee Hill? Okay, my turn. Exciting news. We had the first meeting of the Economic Opportunity Task Force on October 1st, and that resulted in a robust response of volunteers who wanted to get involved with how the village can plan for inviting new business, foot traffic, and retail opportunity into the village. And it was the first meeting, so there was a lot of things discussed. The head of the BID, Business Improvement District, and the Director of Operations from the Chamber were there in attendance, as were several members of the BID who decided to stay because the meeting was held and will continue to be held directly after the Business Improvement District monthly meetings. October 1st was the first Tuesday of the month, and so I believe that's right, first Tuesday. So just some of the things that came out of that meeting, and that we'll get minutes from, but so objectives include organizing data on who is in the village, residents, tourists, foot traffic. How can we accumulate that data? And I think we have some really good ideas from the task force, how to get that data. Create a vision of a new South Village area. What is the vision for the, what the look, feel, and character of everything south of Sheep Pasture Road and North Country Road will look like going forward, with residents' perspective and business owners' perspective in mind. We want to create a PowerPoint sort of presentation or document that demonstrates the economic impact of the village, from foot traffic to ferry traffic that leading to foot traffic and vehicular traffic, train ridership, transportation between Stony Brook and University and the village, relationships with the large employers in our village, and what that brings to our village in terms of economic impact, and on and on and on. So I think we have a great deal of interest in putting together a package that helps our planning director sell the village at different functions and forums where he can interact with and have leave behinds for potential speculators. It's either potential speculators or just speculators. How do we build partnerships with the large employers in the village? St. Charles, Mather, National Grid to some extent. There are a lot of people who work here and provide opportunities and reasons why businesses should actually consider Port Jefferson different from any other location. Who else has 2 hospitals with thousands and thousands of employees? We want to understand the needs and research transportation grants through the state. We want to research other successful villages like Huntington, West Babylon, Cold Spring Harbor, Patchogue, and we want to survey residents to understand what business is needed for their everyday needs and isn't here right now. So a lot of great opportunities there. And this is just the beginning. It's just the initial thoughts that this group put together. So I think we have a very invested group, very smart people. Some are even on the Budget and Finance Committee and on other committees. So it should be a lot of fun working with this group and working with Andy Freeling to help bring it all together. An update on building and planning. There are a few things that you've seen in Director Freeling's report. I'll just report on the highlights. There were 16 new building and planning applications received within 30 days prior. 9 building permits were issued, 15 certificates of compliance and certificates of occupancy were issued this month. But there were also 38 FOILs and 34 responded to. So that's a very busy department and a tiny one at that. We also we've welcomed the building and planning department in the village hall these past few weeks following the aftermath of the August, I wish the storm had a name. It would be so much easier, right? August 18, 19. Call him Augie. Superstorm Augie. So there was a lot of damage done to the Department of Building and Planning's, or to the Department of Public Works building, the Highway Department building, 88 North Country. And it is still being resolved. So it's been a really wonderful experience, I want to say, to have the planning and building department here. I'm not just saying that because Andy's sitting in the room. It's true. We've had a lot of great interactions and working closely together on things. It's so much easier to just run into the next office or upstairs and say, hey, do you have this? Do you have that? Somebody's looking for this. I'm looking for that. And the reverse is actually true. So we don't know if we want them to go back to 88 North Country ever. What else? Director Freeling's been working on what he mentioned earlier is an interactive land use map with Suffolk County Planning. This is with our old, this was an outreach made by our former part-time building. Our planner is Joe Sanzano, who is over now at the county working as the director of the planning department, economic development and planning. And he and Andy have been working closely to pull this map together. Andy will be sharing the results of it. Actually, what we did is we asked our tax assessor to identify, this is one aspect of the map project that we're looking at. We asked the tax assessor to identify all municipally owned land, every single identifiable parcel to include it on the map that Andy's been working on. And so he took that list, which was developed, he took that list and he implemented it into the map that was created so we can actually see where Port Jeff has property. It's really quite fascinating. I don't know if anybody has the same fascination of maps, but I'm like thrilled by it all. I'm a visual learner, visual thinker, and I think we have some space on these walls that we can put these maps on. So looking forward to the planning board and the zoning board's feedback on those maps because they're not final yet. They are in process. The building department is looking at the fee schedule and looking to make recommendations as to whether or not permits fees, application fees should be adjusted, comparing other villages to ours, our other village rates, fee rates to ours. So we're looking at having that put before us pretty soon to react to it. We are also looking at the sign code, and I think the planning department is looking at whether or not the language needs to be reviewed, amendments need to be made, and based on feedback that we're getting from some of our businesses, we're thinking that might be a thing. So we anticipate seeing some recommendations to updating that soon. We have a mural code that we're looking at bringing to the board. We're also looking at a rental fee code change. So
Mayor, I'd ask the village clerk to make that 2 agenda items at the next work session.
okay, we'll do. The parking committee has been very active in making solid recommendations to look at how we can improve, be responsive to the needs of the village parking systems. This board has voted on some things to move them forward. We're looking at more recommendations to move forward potentially at the next resolution meeting, agenda meeting. I think that is, we do want to announce that Trustee Hill has worked with Suffolk County Police Community Relations folks, the COPE officers, to put together a coffee with a cop. It is scheduled for November 1st. It's a Friday at the Village Center. Okay, thank you for doing that, Kyle. That's going to be interesting, and we will promote that. We've already started promoting that on social media, so if you want to take it, share it, amplify it.
Trustee, we're good to ask what time it was. I believe it's at 11. 11 to
11
1.
to 1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 11:01, November 1st at the Village Center. And that's a Friday.
Bring your own donuts, BYOD.
But there will be coffee. Is that?
There will be coffee,
All right.
because it is advertised as coffee. Okay, so I will leave it there and look to Clerk Perillo for her report. Maybe.
Thank you, Mayor. So to start my report, I'm asking that we please vote on an employment resolution. As we know, we sometimes have to go out of process to ratify the resolutions. This one would be resolution number 01100924. This is on behalf of Jake Anderson for our country club. It's a resolution ratifying the hiring of Fred Dugord as an inside staff employee at the Port Jefferson Country Club at an hourly wage rate of $18 per hour effective October 1st, 2024. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
I'd like to just make a comment. Fred plays golf every single day of the week, and he's the first guy on the tee box every morning. So, just an outside statement for an inside staff member.
Thank you.
He'll take them off the golf course a little bit.
No, his hours are 10 a.m. to
Right. That was his schedule. I'd like to start with an add-on. You will see on our agenda for our meeting on the 23rd, an agreement between the village and the Business Improvement District for snow removal and the application of salt and sand within the Business Improvement District. As has happened in years past, the Business Improvement District has committed to paying 60% of such totals, upon receipt from the village of the corresponding invoices. So we'll be seeing that on the agenda for the 23rd. Going to my resolutions, we have a resolution to approve a proposal from Nexus Unlimited. This is to step up the production quality and values of our current streaming and our current tech, and we have a professional services proposal that was presented accordingly at our meeting on the 23rd. We will have a pilot from a representative of this company so that we can rest assured that we're getting the quality that we're looking for. Mayor, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Just that these meetings are not transcribed in their entirety. Like this work session, we don't have a stenographer, transcriptionist. So in order to really have a quality, consistent quality so that they can be referred to for reasons of, referral, historic perspective, that kind of thing, it's really important to have something that can be actually utilized to pull a transcript, perhaps. And, it's can be overly burdensome to have less than one group doing all the work. So we did some outreach and learned of this company, and so we're looking forward to the pilot and see how the test works out.
You will see two resolutions here on my report. Both are referring to sidewalk repair, replacement, and remediation per a resolution that we passed at our August meeting. The Suffolk County contract for what was awarded expired a few days after our resolution. So that being the case, we went back to one of the proposers, which was actually the lowest bidder, and that's DL Concrete, and asked if they would maintain the RFP pricing. They have agreed to maintain the RFP pricing for the work. And another concern was personnel for traffic and safety, and they will be providing personnel for traffic and safety within the same pricing. So that's why you'll see those two concurrent resolutions.
That's great.
Thank you.
So that'll be on the agenda to vote on the 23rd.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
Under employment, you'll see that we have interviewed for clerk of the works. I wanted to thank Superintendent Gallagher for working with me on this, and we will have a recommendation to the board for someone to fill that position for our meeting on the 23rd. Under boards and committees, the Board of Ethics annual organizational meeting took place, and ethics training for employees was on the 2nd, of October, and the next session will be the 17th. The second was very well attended. There were 40.
The room was full.
Yeah, the room was full. Trustee Hill, you were there as well. So, and the next one is on the 17th. An email address was created for the tree committee at the request of Liaison Giuliano. That address is capital P, capital J, capital T, trees, at portjeff.com. So I wanted everyone to be aware of that. Under IT and website, I would like to add for discussion the fact that I'm working with Grants Administrator Matto on what's called an LGR MIF, which is a Local Government Records Management Improvement Fund grant. The end result of that grant is the digitization of village records for helping in building and planning, but also for other village records. That's the end goal. In order to get to that goal, though, we have some work that requires IT savvy personnel. And that kind of work is, the most important part of that is working with the New York State records retention system, and figuring out which records we can safely and properly dispose of, which are no longer needed by our municipality. And prior to that, we will need to look through Village Hall. We have various areas here in Village Hall, in the treasurer's office, in the clerk's office, downstairs in other areas, in where the building department is currently located, and we have many boxes. So we're going to take account of all the boxes. We're going to literally see what's in them. Again, go to the records retention schedule, which is extremely detailed. It's a very thick and detailed document. And we're going to find out what, again, can be properly disposed of. We also will be visiting our storage area over by the country club. And after all this is completed and we go to digitization, if we have need for storage at Brookhaven, who has offered to us their services for a very nominal fee, we can determine that. But I just wanted to let the board and the public know that we're undertaking a project of this scope. It's necessary, and we really are working on it very heavily. And thank you to Lisa. She has experience in working with this grant, as do I, so she's already begun the process for us.
Scope and magnitude.
Yes.
Clerk, I'd just like to make myself available. I've done a ton of these systems rollouts, so.
Mhm. Thank you, appreciate that.
And just trying to decide how much history to digitize or the plan for that while enabling current digitization efforts and sort of moving forward on that. So to a digital collection mechanism. I'm very excited to hear that.
Thank you. So your point is taken. There are actually two different things. It's what can be destroyed and what we with experience think should be destroyed. So unfortunately, those are many times two different things. And that's a very valid point. Thank you. Lastly, we have spoken in the past, this is regarding election task force recommendations. So based on previous conversations of this board and the recommendations of the election task force, we have begun investigating the procedure to have a referendum placed on the ballot regarding the extension of length of term. I will be having a phone conversation, for example, to start with election attorney tomorrow at 11:30. And then from there, we can proceed.
Is this something we'd like that task force -2 to take a look at?
Yes,
Okay.
certainly.
Is that just for is that for across the board, or and what was sort of the inciting incident that caused, I don't know, the group that's bringing this matter to essentially want to dig further into it?
So we looked at the feedback from the election committee. We looked at what other municipalities have done. And we thought the process would clarify the consent, right? So I'm going to go out on a limb. It could break because I could be wrong, but I think that it would require a public hearing. I feel like putting something as a referendum on a ballot would require a public hearing. And if it doesn't, the referendum itself is the public hearing.
Mhm.
So it qualifies itself.
Mhm.
You want it, you don't want it. What the clerk learned in her conversation with election counsel and shared with me is that the length of term versus the term
The
limit,
of term,
two different things.
Mhm.
Term limits do not belong on as a
Correct.
referendum,
That's correct.
I think. That's the initial reaction, but length of term does.
Mhm.
So that was sort of what inspired, and I don't know about you, but the conversations that come to me without any kind of initiation from my end is 2 years. That's a really short time. Like, it is what it is. Well, how, that people say, and reports from the past that I've read, that the sentiment is 4 years, it doesn't matter to me, so it matters what the residents want. So that's the way to find out. But this board has to agree, I believe, and we'll find out, with putting it on a ballot,
Mhm.
right? So it's, maybe it's a public hearing, maybe it's a board resolution, and then however that ends up, we see the ballot at the end of the tunnel.
We've just begun the process of recognizing and solidifying the procedure, so as soon as we know that, we'll continue to forge ahead.
And just to clarify, we're investigating a referendum to extend the trustee and mayor's office to 4 years. And just to remind folks sitting in the room or watching at home and this board, the recommendations from the elections task force was to keep all of those positions at 2 years. And then just a question, like, could you also just help me understand how term lengths can be subject to a referendum, but term limits cannot?
I cannot, no, I cannot help you understand that until I speak further with the election attorney. I would prefer to not speak out of turn until we have all the facts at hand.
I'm speculating.
Okay. But so just as of today, unsure on both fronts then? We're unsure that we can do a referendum or not do a referendum on either of those subjects.
We're
No,
sure we can do a referendum on the
on the
length of term.
on the length of term.
Okay. And then
And-
we are unsure if we cannot do, we don't know if there's anything prohibiting term lengths, or sorry, term limits going to a public referendum.
Or could they both be on the same or separated? What does it look like?
It's possible that they could both be on the same referendum. But again, we're in exploratory
Okay.
phase right now,
Thank you.
okay? Just wanted to let everyone know. You're welcome.
Is that the end of your report? So
Yes,
I'd
thank
like
you.
to insert a report from trustee Giuliano in his absence. He took the time to put this together, so we appreciate that. We miss him. And we can't wait to see him back in his seat. This is a DPW update. Trustee Giuliano reports that crosswalk, turn lane, stop bar painting continues in downtown and around the village, including up around Mather Hospital, et cetera. They are still addressing the water damage issues at 88 North Country Road. The speed shield sign was installed on Old Post Road East, as Trustee Hill mentioned. They are preparing trucks and inventory for the winter season. Parks update is that the wall by the ice rink has been trimmed of ivy and various brush and painting of the wall has been completed. It looks great. Go take a look. They did a really great job. Paint poured pink banners have been installed. And the village is awash in pink. To remind everybody that this is Breast Health Awareness Month and to get your mammogram. The Parks Department repaired and refurbished the playboat at Harborfront Park Spray Park. Power washing of the bid area sidewalks continues, and we've gotten some really good on-the-street feedback about the look of the sidewalks in the village, especially along East Main Street. The hanging baskets and replacement of seasonal plantings throughout the village continues. Most of the hanging baskets were removed, I saw today, because they were ending their seasonal life. Parks and Rec Committee update includes some things. I'll just say this, Stan, because I know that you reported on some of this. A meeting with the Port Jeff School District lacrosse coaches regarding the possibility of having a youth box lacrosse program at the sport court / ice rink next to the village center was held. Discussed the need for the Budget and Finance Committee to complete and present its recommendations for village center room rentals for the 25 calendar year. So I know the Parks and Rec Advisory Council already wants to take a look at that. All right. From the Tree Committee, there is a divining brochure that is in production. It looks really great so far. The subcommittee met. Divining is an awareness campaign of removing the vines on trees that are strangling and killing our trees. So this is an awareness campaign. It should be ready for printing shortly.
I just want to add, it also increases the risk that they would fall because it's weighing them down, catches the wind. Hurricanes are happening. So if you or your neighbor has a very ivy-filled tree, maybe let them know.
Take a look at
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
It's probably worth the investment.
One of the strategies that was recommended in one of the tree committee meetings that I was sitting at was how can we, and this was actually this was discussed with Steve Gallagher as well, is if we work with the landscape folks, because as the season ends and they get slow, divining could be another aspect of the products and services that they offer. So they can use our brochures in their mailers. So we'll do that. We'll work with if anyone has recommendations for who to send this to, who their landscaping companies are, please share them with Trustee Giuliano or pjtrees@portjeff.com. Send it to pjtrees@portjeff.com. Who gets that email, by the way? Do we know?
There are, if I remember well, Trustee Giuliano told me that there are 2 representatives of the committee that are taking dual responsibility for that.
Okay. All right. Very good. So Dave Melios and Bob Giuliano walked downtown business area to identify locations for the 4 trees that were donated to the Port Jeff Chamber by PSE&G. On to the Conservancy. The Conservancy is working on its major fundraiser, Zoot Suits and Silk Stockings, a Roaring Twenties themed gathering at the Victorian Studio on Main Street, which is Nan Gazetta's former establishment, and that will be held on November 14th. Finally, there's a recommendation that code really needs to remind businesses about the noise ordinance and loud music on weekends, as we see reported on the community pages of Facebook, complaints about loud music throughout the night and even after code is gone. So that's not good. Okay.
I will say at the last public safety council meeting, Chief Owen did mention that as a complaint that they had received. So
Okay.
it does.
So they're
appear
aware.
They're
and
aware.
What do we
Yeah.
do after 12? After 12?
I guess you could
Suffolk
call
County
Suffolk
Police.
County Police.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Treasurer Gafka.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try and be brief. I'm going to start with parking. Just as an announcement, we were able to finally finalize the installation plan schedule for the new parking meters. So for everybody to know, the 15th, the Tuesday right after Columbus Day, DPW in conjunction with our electricians are going to pull all of the active parking meters, the ones that are currently taking money and credit cards. from the 15th, the 16th, and the 17th, we're going to prep the surfaces for the 8 locations where the new parking meters will be installed, which will happen on the Friday, the 18th, with DPW, the installation team from the company that sold us the meters, and our electrical contractor. So that should all be happening, and then we'll get the training to get the software up and running so that the meters work, which shouldn't take more than a couple days. So progress. The parking revenue is up. It's still up. September was higher than last year's September by about 10 grand. And we're seeing every level of the parking revenue up. Honk Mobile was up. The meters themselves were up. Danford's revenue from the parking that they collect and then pass on to us was up. And the EV chargers seem to be getting a lot more use. So that revenue is also up. So everything is doing well there. The merchant agreement was executed, so we should be seeing the reflection of those new rates for the October statement. I'll update you as to what that looks like comparatively to last October. I don't have any resolutions on my agenda, but I anticipate that there will be some. I'll pass it along to the board as soon as I have it, but we're working on the rest of the ARPA funds that are remaining to be used. Roughly $68,000 have tasked the several departments with coming up with ideas for these funds, including but not limited to the coastal technologies proposal for East Beach Bluff, which is capital protection of that asset. The DPW with potentially a sign machine to make signs, as well as looking at repairing the retaining wall over at the Village Center that seems to have some holes in it that need to be patched up. So all of those quotes are in process.
Centennial Park or Village Center?
I believe it was the Village Center, but I will confirm that. So we're working on getting quotes and RFPs, from the vendors to see what that pricing looks like. And as soon as a decision's made or the best use of that funds, it'll be presented and put in front of the board. The independent audit is going. We're about 60% of the way through with the information given to the independent auditors. We're working on control narratives, and now they're working on requests from my office for things that they've already seen in the trial balances. So it's moving quickly. I'll update you as to timelines once we get to needing to update the AFR with New York State and when the financials will actually be done. That's some estimated time frame. It should be meeting with them within the next week or so. And I think that's it. If there's any questions.
Treasurer, do we want to, is it too soon to talk about sort of the kind of accounting training that's being rolled out, et cetera? Do you want to make mention of that, or?
In terms of, so one of the things with the capital audit, one of the things that used to happen in the village, going back 15 years, there used to be a file folder for every capital project with every voucher and all of the supporting documentation, and that process stopped for some reason. So the treasurer's office, in conjunction with my staff, the deputy treasurer Michelle Ferrante and Lynn Spiro, were trying to work together to recreate the active projects in terms of each one of those projects having a file folder in a specific location in the treasurer's office. Spent about 2.5, 3 hours going through the recharge basin project, getting every single voucher, budget resolution, funding resolution, and the FEMA documents all in a file folder so that it's easily viewable and recallable, that it could be presented if anybody wanted to look at it. How are we spending the money? And it makes it quite clear, the funding source, the expenses, the budgetary impact, and all of the different vouchers. So that will be something that I'm excited about, that it'll be clear and better accounting for each one of those projects. That's one of the things that's been going on, and just continuing to try and tighten up closer to New York State standards what we do in the treasurer's office in terms of how we process payments, with the new procurement policy, getting everybody up to speed, figuring out the best way to go about all of those various aspects of the job.
Was that what you meant?
Well, I think what Treasurer Gafka brought up is really important because it's an effort to drive towards what's called segregation of duties, right? So if I'm doing something, I can't check my own work or approve my own work. And so extending that discipline and back into the warrants process, which, you know, I've sat with our warrants auditor, so that's looking really good. The triangulation here is interesting because it's going to directly impact what the clerk is doing in terms of evaluating digitization, right? There
Yeah.
will be a lot of decisions to be made around that. But thank you, Mayor. What I was actually sort of alluding to is how do we, as we roll out better variance reporting, help the department heads really understand where they sit in terms of each of their capital projects, in terms of managing their own department's expenses against the budget on an ongoing basis, and you know, and so we're looking at, you know, who really needs training in terms of government accounting. We have employees who have spent their lives in a commercial environment and so don't really understand, you know, how to manage government accounting. And so just looking to fill that gap.
On the procurement policy, perhaps? Is that part of
The
that?
procurement policy is only a part of it, but once things have, you know, been purchased, it's a big part of it, right? It's sort of the anchor, but also helping people understand, you know, for example, I'm responsible for this department. You know, am I monitoring to see whether I'm tracking against the trends that I would expect by mid-year, let's say, so that I don't have a negative surprise in the 10th month of the fiscal year and realize we're going to blow our budget in a big way, right? So this is, again, an effort to address some of what we were talking about last time with respect to the deficit that we're dealing with and how do we now move towards what is a best practice reserve that we're going to have to build up over time. And so ensuring that all of the village employees that are responsible for participating in that,
Department heads.
you know, department heads are, you know, are involved in the training program.
Yeah, and with that, I just want to state that with the new procurement policy, we will be scheduling a procurement training session for everybody, every staff member that has their hands in procurement. One of the things that speaks to what Trustee Ugrinsky was talking about is the monthly financial reports. Those are a good stepping stone for that kind of review. It shows the percent and variance to how much money is left and how much you've spent. So that's a good starting point to track if people are going too fast in certain budget lines and they need to be reined in, or perhaps in the future years we need to adjust the budget because it's not sufficient enough. So it's always it's a moving target. But
Or it may just impact their decision making. For example, how they staff certain things, whether they're using part-time people or
Overtime.
full-time people, right? How much overtime is being used, and you know. So I'm really excited. Actually, I'm sort of a geek in that regard.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah. But I have a fellow geek in the treasurer.
And a lot of geek wannabes, but we just don't cut it.
sell yourself short.
Yeah.
Okay. I just by way of update, this is out of the blue, but I walked the Bluff area today with Steve Enkelbright at your recommendation, and it was very educational. He found 3 rocks that were prehistoric in nature from Connecticut. Like they
He is a geologist.
came to us from Connecticut. Anyway, it was very, very enlightening, and still processing the information that he shared with me about erosion and the way water works and from west to east and why Long Island looks like it does, et cetera, all going into why our bluff looks like it does and what we need to plan for in the years ahead. And he asked me, with what you're thinking about in terms of the plan, which is still in the works, how long would you say you're looking ahead for it to address the issues? And I said, 50 years. And he said, that's good. I didn't know if he thought that, if he would think that would be good, but he did. And it was very, very interesting to spend a little time with him. Al Kasari was there, and he showed us from the perspective of the beach, his home and the erosion that has taken place between the tennis courts and the homes on Stewart's Court and Waterview. And so, or Fairway. So from there, I just wanted to announce that the Civic Association has asked our Erosion Commission to discuss the work that they've been doing over the past few months with the Civic Association. Steve Engelbright will be there, so he'll talk about these issues as well. So just the work is interesting, good. We're meeting with the new on-call / village engineering firm just to talk about some of the issues that we are discussing at this point. See how we can start moving forward with some of the planning processes and RFPs that we're working through. So we're going to start making some real progress soon, I think. And I'll obviously be bringing that to this board on a regular basis if you're not involved in the discussions in real time.
I would just like to say I love the fact that it's becoming a broader conversation. I appreciate the fact that you spent the time with Engelbright, because he really has a wealth of information that can help inform, the data essentially against which the village has to make a decision. So I know these things go much slower than everybody would want them to, but it's not inconsequential. And in a 50-year outlook, I applaud you for picking that number, because that's the right way to look at things for the village. Thank you.
He has great maps too.
Yes.
If you like maps, this guy has great maps. And I like his maps. Okay, Attorney
I
Moran.
have nothing to report that hasn't been discussed.
Okay, all right. And do we need to go into executive session tonight?
No, Mayor, not
Okay. Is there anything else we need to cover tonight? Did I forget anything? Did you forget anything? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries at 7:14.